Ladies and gentlemen, welcome NBC Olympic broadcaster, triathlon, alpine skiing, Tour de France, Steve Porino. Woo! We'll put some crowd noise or something. You're gonna see real production value. Steve Pino, how are you, brother?
I am very well. I'm honored to be on the podcast. This is cool.
It's a it's a pleasure to have you. I tell this to all guests. This is a podcast about a party. We are not here to do good. We may stumble into it, but we're just here to tell tales. It's like we're sitting at the bar, but it's morning where you are, so we don't have a drink in hand, and we're just telling stories about the good old days. It is also in light of an upcoming anniversary. It's going to be the 20th anniversary of my Olympic medal win in Torino, 2006. So I just wanted to bring people together who are in the world and like tell cool stories about what our lives are like behind the scenes, things that no one else gets to hear. How's that sound?
It sounds amazing. If we don't have to do good, you have come to the right place.
That's my man. Hey, do you notice what I'm wearing? Do you know what this is? You remember
Oh,
this?
yeah. This is part of the gear from the World University Games Lake Placid.
This
Yeah,
was the last broadcast we did together, I think.
it
Right?
was
We haven't done
amazing.
one since.
And no, that was my first and so far last speed skating broadcast. I'd still wake up in the middle of the night sweating because I didn't have the pairs figured out. Ah,
Yeah. It was my first and apparently last World University Games. So you and I were simpatico there. We each have a
right.
solo attempt at it. So what's good, man? Where are you?
Uh, I'm, it's not quite a bar, but it has the fixings of sort of a ski bar. This is my broadcast booth. So I'm in Sun Valley, Idaho, and I do all the broadcasts for Alpine World Cup, mostly from the garage. People think I'm traveling the world, but this is my life, as you know, because you're doing this too. Not as sexy as
Yeah,
people
yeah,
think.
yeah.
It's
Is
it's just
not. So
that's all.
yeah, actually,
That's the place.
I've got my I can't really fully turn my camera on, but behind this is my NBC broadcast setup as well. Would you rather be there? There, as in
Yeah,
at the World Cup.
there's time. Ah, I love the fact that I can roll out of bed at 1 a.m. and, do my job. And then at 6 a.m., even though I'm half myself by then, be with the family. So there's a mix, but
Yeah.
I want to be on site some of the time, but I want to be at home most of the time. So beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
You know what? Also, dude, you figured it out. You get to live in. You said Sun Valley or Ketchum. I didn't remember.
Well, I mean, Sun Valley, I actually live in Haley, Mid Valley for the
Okay.
folks that live in the Wood River Valley, but just south of Ketchum and Sun Valley.
For those that know, if you know, you know. So you figured it out.
Mhm.
You're living in the Sun Valley Ketchum world. You get to go ski. You get to call skiing for a living from your garage. You know, I've had real jobs now, and it ain't that. I got to go to an office every day. I got to be on Excel every day. It's awful.
Oh, yeah. I'll take it. Honestly, I'll take it,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna brag a little bit about I had an unbelievable Sun Valley day the other day. There's a thing called early ups. I teach a little bit of skiing so I can get a ski pass for the family, and this gentleman has an early up pass, which means you get to go up before it opens to the masses, and it happened to be a powder day, the first powder day of the year, and I went up with him, skied powder. He just wanted to ski powder. I was like, "I'm in." And then we went to our son's, like, musical thing. Not amazing, but cute. Cute as you can imagine. Got on a plane because I gotta hit Diamond on Delta. So I needed to spend some money, and I had a
Uh,
companion ticket. And so then I flew to Salt Lake to take in a Mammoth game, Utah Mammoth hockey game. Buddy of mine got us sweet tickets. We went there, we got an Airbnb, came home inside 18 hours, we were back home, easy as can be. It's hard to beat a day like that.
Man, this is gonna offend most of our dozen viewers. They're gonna be really irritated that this is life. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this, and I'm actually super glad that you brought up your sweet life. There's a hierarchy I find in Olympic sports, and I want to know if you've seen some of this. You've called stuff. You called triathlon. You've called skiing. You've called the Tour de France. I would even call this sort of high tier Olympic sports. Speed skating, we're a weird one because we got a good Olympic footprint, but you don't see us the rest of the year. And it's not like people are taking their vacation to go speed skating. It's not. like we're in ski resorts all over the world. It's great. I'm not complaining. But skiers are like the crown princes and princesses of the winter world. Figure skate is kind of competing a little bit there. Um, how would you how are you I'm gonna give you controversial. How would you rate this in terms of experience from a lifestyle perspective? I would put skiing really high up there, and I would actually put cross country pretty low. Not that it's not great, but those men and women work like dogs, and if they're great, they still have to do 10Ks and stuff. But,
Right.
like where'd you rate this? If you gotta be a winter sports athlete, which one are you gonna be?
I was having this conversation the other day with a former teammate of mine, much more successful, as all my teammates were, AJ Kitt, World Cup winner a couple times. And he was lamenting the fact that downhill, specifically the discipline of downhill in the US, is kind of losing traction because it's tricky, to shut down an entire mountain so that you can ski 70 miles an hour. And he said it's a bummer because when you watch a kid come down a downhill course, first, middle, last, they're laughing. It is so much fun, and that is invariably just I mean, unless you have the pedigree of winning, right? And then you
Yeah.
didn't win that day, but there's this incredible joy. If you come down a slalom hill and you're last, every single turn is painful. It's just, and I would say having done some Nordic skiing myself, if I'm last every time, that's a lot of suffering with not a lot of payoff. There's got to be a real internal love of the sport to overcome all the pain and the disappointment. Downhill racing, you get to take the lift up. And if you're lucky enough to get to the bottom, it is such a gas. So from that standpoint, downhill skiing in particular, I'm going to put it, I haven't done all of them, but it's pretty
Yeah.
high up there. I'm with you.
All right, what about curling? Would you be a curler? Let's say we're gonna rank stuff like downhill ski are awesome. I think if I'd downhill skied first and I'd had the talent, I would have been downhill skier before speed skater. If I could have, spend my winters in exotic ski resorts. Um, uh, Probably hockey play. I don't know. Like hockey's fun, but I feel like I would just get blasted all the time. Just get wrecked. And I'm a dainty guy. I'm kind of slender. I don't know if I can handle it. Let's see. We got figures. I would do figures. I bet I'd be pretty glamorous out there. I like being on skates.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We got luge, bobsled. I did the bobsled one time. I am not interested in doing that sport. That is a lot of getting banged around going down that mountain.
Yeah.
Definitely no
And
skeleton.
unless you're the guy in front, you don't see anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push for 5 seconds, jump
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
it's fun
yeah.
to go back. You talk about, you're dainty and you would have been a ski racer if you'd had the talent. We have no idea that whether you had the talent or not. But I can tell you that as a ski racer growing up, and this is probably true to this day, when we watch speed skaters, particularly the sprinters, we're like, I'd like to have myself a set of those legs. Uh, I mean,
You know
I did
what?
some I would work occasionally with Dan Jansen, and his legs, were the
Yeah.
size of my trunk. And I thought I could have done some damage with a set of those.
So yeah, you know what? I would have liked those legs too. Dan Jansen was a golden god. That man was built like yeah, like a Greek god. And in fact, here I'll tell you a funny story. I had to fight for this. Like I fought, battled to gain weight because I'm thin naturally. And it turns out I was lucky. I came of age in speed skating when the speeds were unbelievably high because we were indoors and the clap skates came out. So the big guys suddenly were at a disadvantage in the corners because we're hitting those corners another 5 miles an hour faster. And so the bigger guys were like chattering out of the corners. So if you were powerful and dainty or like slim like I was, every pound less you have on your body is a pound less you got to carry through those corners. So there was a period of time where it was like my build was actually optimal and most of the guys winning looked like me. Dumb luck, right? Like I happened to be born at the right time. Dan Jansen, when I was about 19, came out to Salt Lake City. We were all living and training for the 2002 Olympics. We came out there. We were doing this workout. Dan Jansen came out and we were doing an inline workout. So we were in the what's it, RC Willie is a big furniture distributor in Salt Lake City, and we were rollerblading, inline skating, training in the summer in the RC Willie parking lot. Dan Jansen, at this point, he was probably maybe in his 40s. Um, but like, a decade at least outside of his athletic Olympic career, although now that's a lot shorter than it seemed to be, but at the time it seemed like forever. Dan Jansen comes out, pulls off his shirt because we're skating without shirts on, we just got shorts on, pulls off his shirt, we're skating outdoors, and the girls on the team all go, and I can promise you, at no point when I ever took my shirt off did any of the girls on the team ever go. So so yeah, we all wanted to look like Dan Jansen.
Yeah, well, not alone. I mean, I wouldn't
All
take my
right.
shirt off skiing, but
I've seen some of the spring skiing days. All right, so I got a question for you. We just saw it happen. Your feelings more impressive, Lindsey Vonn's latest downhill win with the rebuilt knee, or when Michaela Shiffrin clicked over on the most ever World Cup wins?
but boy, they're two totally different things. I mean, one's a build, right? You see it coming, you see it coming, you see it coming, and you know it's going to happen. Like you knew Shiffrin was going to not only break the record of all time wins, but just continue running away with it. Vonn has that moment. You to come back and I'll speak to it again. I was never winning World Cup races, but I was a downhiller, specifically a downhiller, not slalom and giant slalom. And there's this fear element. And every time you have
Mm.
a crash, it eats away a little bit at it. I would wake up and I don't think, I think this is fairly normal, but I'd wake up 10 years after my career, 5 years after my career in a sweat because I had to go to the top of a downhill and I wasn't ready. And I think it doesn't take long for you to lose the risk gene. And I don't care how old you are. I mean, yes, she's 41 years old. There's other men that have continued to compete up until 40. Not many, but a couple. And they're still relatively competitive. But to take 5 years off and then jump back in, the artificial knee thing, it sounds kind of like the bionic woman. But the reality is that she's fitter now because of that than she was the last several years of her career, less pain. But what
So she
blows
can
me
train.
away is yeah, I mean, she can handle the forces. I mean, she's not in physical discomfort. Before, she was taking maybe 2 runs a day, and sometimes that was too much. So she was running entirely on experience, right? And it just, like if you're in pain, it takes the joy out of everything you're doing. And to
Yeah.
be able to sustain that and like work through the pain every single day. She was getting up at 4:30 in the morning to get on the spin bike and all this stuff just to be ready to take 2 runs, like 120 seconds of skiing or whatever it was, 4 minutes, just not much. And now that's pretty much behind her. But again, the fact that she can still risk it and that she's maybe as good or better technically than she was when she retired, that blows me away because I don't know anybody else that could do it, take that much time off, come back in a high risk sport and still have that appetite for speed. She is unique.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember watching one of the many times she had catastrophic wipeouts and surgery and bounce back in the same maybe the next season and start winning World Cups again. And I remember watching, and it's incomprehensible to me. Most athletes, and I knew in speed skiing for sure, you wipe out or you have a surgery, like it's going to be a couple of years before you claw your way back up again. And she would just be able to pop back up. It was wild watching that. It was incredible. It was so much fun. Um,
Yeah.
so, oh gosh, that's wild. You told me one time, and I want to see if I can remember sort of, but I want you to like retell this. We're talking about Michaela Shiffrin and how she was so good. And you were saying there is at least one variable in there about like reps and like times down the mountain that is like absolutely crucial and critical. If there were in my dozen or so listeners any parents of potential ski racers, you were saying something. There's some again, like just like numbers of turns or something. There's a function, and that's the one thing that you can probably control that could help you get great. Could you, if you remember what I'm talking about, could you like walk me through that one more time if you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I she is as much as again. If we're comparing her earlier to Lindsey Vonn. Lindsey Vonn has this. if you're afraid of going fast, downhill's gonna scare you. If you're afraid of hard work, Michaela Shiffrin's life is gonna scare you. Her ability, right, to just do the work, like, no, I don't think like anyone else. I'm not there for everyone's workout routine or how they train, but like talking to her coaches over the year, good friends of mine, they said her ability to ski racing is arguably one of the most inefficient sports in the world.
Mm,
It takes you 4 hours to get 20 minutes of work done. Right?
mhm.
It really does. Right? You're on the lift all the time. It's a sprinting sport. You can't, just to go out there and kind of slide around only works to a point. You've got to ski with intensity. And she could do this uh, 20 runs in a row. And this is from a pretty, like mid late teens. So her training volume, because of her fitness, her focus, her drive, was so much higher than other people, certainly of that age. But then, as far as I understand, she's never really fallen off that kind of training volume. Normal might be 10 runs, right? She's skiing 20 runs. And there's variations in there, and this isn't absolute, but she also, when she was younger, she didn't race a lot. The story is
Mhm.
is that, and her coach was my coach. He failed with me, and so he clearly cleaned up his act. And but they had this idea that you needed, the reps. They understood this, the kind of 10,000 hours concept, which is so hard to get in skiing. But every time you go to a ski race, and I don't know if this is true with speed skating. I don't think it's true of endurance sports. I think you need to race. Um, but in skiing, every weekend you spend racing is a day of training lost, because typically you go take a couple
Mm.
warm up runs, you go inspect the course. It takes you all day, and you essentially take 2 runs. So you can hone the mentality, but you're not honing the skills. And at age 14 and up until then, it's really more about skill acquisition than it is about race mentality. And by the time she needed to race, she was so much better than everyone. It was like there were no nerves. She didn't have to
Yeah.
conquer anything else. And so that's, I think, part of the magic that's made her so good so young.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. That's interesting. There's a lot of interesting perspective there. I mean, especially in the like society where every kid is competing in everything from 5 years old or whatever. All right. Enough ski race talking. Let's talk broadcast, my man. Your first Olympics was what, 2002? Is that right?
I went as a print
Broadcast.
journalist yeah, broadcast 2002, print, I did one in 98 in Nagano.
No kidding. All right. What
Yeah.
was your favorite Olympics to cover? Print, broadcast.
Uh, I think Torino, music to your ears.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we brought you on. There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, tell me why. Tell
Yeah.
me why. What was going on?
That I think Salt Lake was so close to home. It lacked. I lived there, and so
Mhm.
it was also post 9/11. So it was
Yeah, that's right.
very locked down. And I tell this to people, maybe the most locked down Olympics I'd ever been to. So at the top of the downhill, right? That there's security securing the valley, right? And so we'd
Yep.
get up at 3:30 in the morning and to go through mag and bag with the car and then with your body, and then you get up there and there's nobody, right? That I've never been to a ski event, including my kids, where there are fewer people watching. And so the sense of atmosphere was gone. So that's part of it. And there was still a little bit of that in Italy, but,
Yeah.
I sort of felt like it was my second Olympics, and so I felt a little bit more at ease. And, Perino, I'm Italian. It just, it was great
Yeah.
food, and we had this great our hotel was inside the ski area, which again was still shut down. We had, days that get there's too much snow, so you can't run the race, so we got to go powder skiing on our private mountain, so there's nothing wrong with that. And then the US had, incredible success and also failure. Bodie Miller was the poster child, right? And,
Yep.
not that
Yep.
that was a great memory, but it was a learning, for me as a broadcaster. And then, Julie Mancuso, gold medals, big surprises. So,
Yep. Ted
I think it was just
Ligety?
because it was one of the early ones for me. I loved it. And Ligety, amazing, yeah,
Yeah,
you got
Ligety
it.
was at games.
Gold
Yep.
medal, 21 years old. No one saw that coming. And you just, you love Olympic surprises, when people, neither Ligeti nor Julia Mancuso were billed to do anything at the Olympics. And I shouldn't say anything, but right, they were long shots. And so when people
Yeah, yeah,
pull
yeah.
through in those moments, those are indelible memories, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that was cool. I mean, I knew both those guys pretty well. Like, we used to go they were both from Park City, and we were living in Park City getting ready for for the Salt Lake games and then Torino. But, like, we could, like, go party with them and stuff. Go party at Julia Mancuso. She used to throw parties at her house all the time. She was kind of a rock
Yeah.
star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
she so,
Ligeti,
all right.
21 years old. He
Yeah.
did I remember him actually, to your Janet Jansen story, I saw him out at night, he had his shirt off, it was definitely winter, w and, he was celebrating his gold medal, shirtless and witless, as far as I could tell.
Yeah. I spent the next 4 years after Torino witless. So I mean, I did college after speed skating, so I was just I don't remember much, but I was I was a 28-year-old Olympic gold medalist freshman, so I was spent the most of the time trying to damage whatever brain cells I was getting during the day. So he earned it. He deserves it.
Yeah, as did you.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I took it too far. It was a little too long. I burned the candle a little too bright there for a while. I think I'm still recovering all these years later. Okay, Torino. Did you go to Sochi?
I went to Sochi.
What'd you
It
think?
was an
I was
odd
there too. I was
experience.
there on the hosting, the like hospitality side with sponsors and things.
Uh-huh. Well, give me your impression then was there much hospitality going down?
Not much. Remember, they were the big concern was that hotels weren't done and stuff.
Yeah, that
So
was
that
a
was pretty
legitimate
weird.
concern.
One of the sponsors I was with was they were a building supply company, and they brought with them a bunch of their big clients. And this is, a little inside baseball at the Olympics. It's actually way more lucrative. Well, for many of us, it's way more lucrative post Olympics than it is during the Olympics and up to the Olympics.
Mhm.
Um, but one of these big building supply companies was an Olympic sponsor, and they brought all their big customers because it's like a big customer, appreciation thing. And so we did a couple days down in the skating cluster, and then by the sea, by the Black Sea? Was it Black Sea? I don't even remember what sea it was, but down by the sea, and then a couple days up in the ski cluster. And so we were walking around with all these like pretty grizzled construction guys, and they were looking at this faux alpine village that had been built within the last year or two on the side of this mountain. And these guys were looking at the building and they're going, that will never last. That's never going to last. This is going to fall off the mountain. It felt like you were in Disneyland, but as soon as you look behind the wall, it was just like cardboard and two by fours. So the venues were strange. I don't know if it felt that way as skiers, but it definitely felt weird.
100%. And I was checking into my room, opened the door, and there was 2 guys, like, still putting things like that I think it was my TV, which never worked, on the wall. And, you looked out the back window of the Marriott, and it was a massive building, and then the backside, it was just construction debris. The
Yeah.
front side, the facade, as you said, and that it was what do they call it? A Potemkin village, right? It was
Yeah.
just all
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
facade, and they had it was just this mismatch of like there was like the Bavarian train station and then Benetton, United Colors of Benetton. It just I don't know. It seemed like I don't know, like they'd put up a project, see, the kindergarten class who could come up with the best village, and then they went with it. Whoever won the whoever
Wild.
won the contest. And so,
Yeah. It's
it
wild.
was strange. And also, the lift system that they put in was beyond state of the art. Some of the most expensive lifts, and the capacity of it was just massive. And I thought, is it ever gonna get used? And I don't think it is gonna ever get used. And I would get on the lift every morning because my role was at the top of the mountain, and I would go up the lift, and it was dark.
Hmm.
And I didn't hear, not once, I never heard an animal. It's very strange. I live in the woods up in the mountains. If you get up early in the
It's
morning, you're gonna
weird.
hear
Yeah.
a bird, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see an animal. I didn't hear an animal. It was like it was nothing. There was nothing up there. It was, and then,
Wild.
what they had done to the environment to put these lifts in was rough. Let's just put it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah.
rough.
They just
Yeah.
it's like a strip mine operation or something.
Yeah. And then but it was, I went through 3 different seasons from the bottom, right? Where, you're
Yeah.
down by the sea there and there's palm
Yep.
trees. And it would start out you
Yeah.
start out in the rain, and then it kind of felt like fall in the woods with no animals, and then you go to the top, and it was just, like, dumping with snow, and it was couldn't amazing skiing, amazing, just, like, avalanche terrain like you read about, so it was a wild experience, but I don't have to go back.
That seems universal. I think pretty much everyone that I've heard who's gone there, who's not Russian, is like, "Yeah, that was wild. Don't think I'll go back, but it was an interesting thing to see once in your life." Did you have anyone you think, any Russian agents try and honeypot you or anything? Because I got a story, but I'm gonna wait and
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah, no, I'm so looking forward to this story. I'm gonna go with no. Carry on.
I mean, okay, it's I don't wanna hype this up, it's too much, but I was there, and I was dating someone at the time, so I was on my best behavior anyway, but, there was a young woman. We were on a it was like a they had bus routes, so I was coming back from a venue down the Sochi cluster, a young woman, and I don't know, like, I would love to think that I'm just, an irresistible, charm magnet, but I don't think that's the case. But there was a young woman who just struck up a conversation with me. And at the time, I had no idea any of this happened. I didn't think anything of it and didn't, whatever. I was in USA gear because I think I probably had to be. It wasn't like, really obvious USA gear, but it was subtle, whatever. And so she strikes up a conversation. We're sort of chatting, and I don't know if you remember, but I was at one point pretty active in my my humanitarian work and my sort of advocacy work throughout the world, and so I was not really in a good. I wasn't afraid Russia was going to do anything to me, but I also was not really opening my mouth while I was there. So I was a little
Yeah.
bit. I'd already been banned from China at that point for my advocacy for Darfur, and so I'm on this bus, and this girl strikes up a conversation, and we're sort of just chatting. I'm like, "Oh, what do you do?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm a writer." I'm like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And like, if I had a type, it's nerdy people. So I was like, "All right, this is kind of interesting." So we're chatting, and so she is telling me about her work and about how she's like a humanitarian. And I was like, a humanitarian in Russia? Tell me more about that. And so she's sort of telling me all these things and that she studied in the US. And we're getting closer and closer to the hotel. And she's like, "Do you have a card or anything?" And I was like, I don't, but I'm here and I can be found. I'm online because I'm an athlete or whatever." And so she gives me her card and then, follows me on a bunch of social media stuff. And I wish there was a better conclusion, but nothing much came of it. And years later, when we start seeing like all of these operations that Russia was doing, where they sort of had this swept out program where they were kind of trying to capture people and get them compromised or compromat or whatever. And I think back to that time, and I'm like, had I not been seeing somebody, had this happened, I would have been like, clearly, I am, the answer. I'm the answer that this young woman is looking for. And I'm like, whoa, the chances that some random humanitarian, like nerdy, bookish, beautiful Russian girl finds me on the bus and just happens to strike up a conversation, it was like non-chance, non-chance. There was 0% chance. And so I realized years later, I'm like, oh, that like at that point, not that I was really operative worthy that they're going to come and try and get me, but I think they were just casting the wide enough net. They're like, if you're here, we're going to try and sweep you up in something. So I have no proof. I don't know if it's the case, but if you're out there, if you're not an operative, sorry. Yeah, I'm happily married now. It didn't work out, but it would have been fun.
Interesting. Did you come across other folks that had a similar experience?
I I have had a few, and I just don't know. Like, I don't know if they're all kind of similar. Like, if they really got compromised, they're not gonna tell me. Like, it's gonna stay secret because otherwise it's just public. But
Right,
I've had
right.
similar experiences with people who travel there, and they're just like, "Yeah, it's weird that you'll just, like, I know my hit rate in real life, and it ain't that great. And so, what are my chances that this one country is just my like strike zone? It seems unlikely." Like it seems unlikely. So it
Right.
takes a little bit of self-awareness, but I
Uh-huh.
don't know. It's all
Yeah,
speculation
yeah,
at this point, my
interesting.
friend.
Yeah, I found it very difficult to actually mingle with real Russia, such as it existed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the Olympics weren't really in Sochi. They were just
Yeah.
in this town next door that didn't exist until the venues went in, and that was the
Yep.
same in the alpine venue, the Rosa Hutor. Uh, but there was you could go behind. We did find our way behind the fence, as it were, which was the original town of like 1,500 people. That this ski resort was way too big to be servicing, and they were hidden back there. And we went into a party one night, and that was, it was great. And it was, a bar. It was awesome. Some friends went and got like massages later, and they were like, they whipped them with like rose bushes or whatever. I don't know, so they had some authentic experiences, but they were hard to come by.
Yeah.
That and, the vodka, Beluga vodka. I was introduced to
Um.
that. It's the only vodka I can drink, as it turns out, um, which isn't horrible, but it is the next day. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I
But
bet. I bet.
few authentic experiences in, in Russia, Asia. That was my lack of experience at these games,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're in such a bubble too. Like once you get credentialed, you're not
right?
usually where most people go. So you don't actually get to go where most people go unless, I mean like Italy you can because you just walk and usually if there's a fence, there's some guy with a carabiner and a cigarette. He's like, yeah, where you going?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
most of the countries, most of the places we're pretty locked down. So we get to hang out with the muckety mucks, but it's hard. You got to work to go find the people.
And oh, absolutely. But I am, for that reason, I'm so looking forward to Milan, right? It just
Yeah.
feels like it's gonna be authentic, it's gonna be strange, it's gonna be spread out.
Yeah.
So it won't be easy for me. I was hoping to get to see other things, but I don't think that's gonna happen until the very end. Uh, I head down to Milan.
So
So
you're gonna be up in the ski resort. Have you been out there in Cortina area before? Or where the Olympics gonna be?
I have. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Cortina. So the women are in Cortina and the men are in Bormio, but you
Mhm.
can't go back and forth between the two. And so myself and Dan Hicks, will call the men's races remotely from Bormio. Either way, you're in a trailer. You know that, right?
Yeah, 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 that's true. But I was not sure I'll be in the venue this year, so I actually get to go, you know, sit there. We're gonna be on the 500-meter finish line, so I'll be there watching all the races and be able to go and talk to the athletes and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but, a little bit smaller footprint. Um, but they'll have somebody on the hill for the women, for sure, or many people maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll be on the hill, but I mean, it doesn't matter what ski event, how nice, how fancy, you always end up in a trailer, right? We don't have an
Yes.
arena.
Yep, yep.
So it's
Yes.
it's always
Yep.
a trailer. Sometimes there's a booth. But it's either a shipping container, a trailer, or a wood box. So those are the three options. And so we will be at the venue in Cortina at the bottom. It'll just be a trailer, and then
I
Peekaboo
got it.
Street, gold medalist
Yeah.
from '98.
Yeah,
She
of
will be
course.
on the hill at the women's races, and your man Ted Ligety will be on the hill in Bormio. Yeah, and
Outstanding. That's so
Cara
cool.
Banks will be in the finish, and Heather Cox will be in the finish for the men. So
That's
that's the way we're
outstanding.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. Man. All right. I want to ask a couple other fun stories because I know a guy named Jim Akowitz. Do you know Jim Akowitz?
Uh huh. From cycling,
Yeah.
not from
Yeah. So,
speed
or
skating, but from cycling.
yeah. Well, he's done both, right? Like he was a speed skater. His wife Sheila Young Akowitz was a gold, silver, and bronze medalist in speed skating. Jim Akowitz was kind of the driving force in men's cycling for a long time, but he has told me stories about the Tour de France. Now, what is more fun to cover, Tour de France or Olympics?
Ah, you you can get your hands a whole lot dirtier at the Tour de France. And so
Hmm.
the Olympics, because they're every 4 years, um, it's just I just, I mean, neither of them are bad, right? I think those are the pinnacles of sport, honestly. And so, but there's something about the tour that it's exhausting, more so than the Olympics
Yeah,
because you move every single day. Um, but there's so much interaction with the fans, and that is my role. And so from that standpoint, it's pretty amazing from a storytelling standpoint. Um, yeah, so yeah, I would say that the tour is pretty unique that way as a broadcaster because anything goes. You have access to everything. It's really just about as rich a storytelling environment as exists that I've ever come across.
that's so cool, man. Is it exhausting? It seems like it would be.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, every year I do not look forward to it. I just loathe packing my bags for a month and, like, I'm, leaving the family for a month, and it's just you've done that with your previous life and all the travel, and I've been doing it for a long time, and so that is just when I it's a heavy lift, and then you're moving every single day, but you eventually get a rhythm, and then you have this unique ability to kind of, there's a story that establishes, and it gets easier and easier every day throughout. I mean, you're dying to go home, but it really is this continuation of a story from beginning to end.
One of the things I was struck by, I didn't realize about broadcast, is how much work the broadcasters have to do when they're not on air. Like the on air part's usually the fun part, and then before that's like homework all the time. When you're at the tour, you're like out there? Are you on the you're on the motorcycle a lot, right? Like, are you on the back of a bike?
Well, I did that for 8 years, and then COVID came along, and I couldn't get there, and they put a pro on the back,
Uh huh.
and so he could read the race because you can't really report. If
Yeah.
someone doesn't tell me something, I've got nothing to offer, right, in cycling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so And so then they said, "You know what? This works." And so then they're like, "We're gonna have Perino go in front of the race and tell us stories, that relate to the race, but also kind of, do that thing that they've never been able to do before, which is tell stories about what's happening on the route itself with the people." So I get to
Yeah.
hang out with the
So
drunk people in front of the race.
you go tell these stories, and then you got to. How many have you found ahead of time? Because like this is a never-ending treadmill you got for the whole 3 weeks, right? Like you got to keep going. So what's the life like when you're not on air during the race, doing the stories, put them together?
That's a unique one because it's very the pace of the race, what happens to the race dictates when I can get on the air. If the race
Mm,
explodes, I'm just like, forget it. I'm not gonna, so if I've spent all this time to try and get this story, then it's kind of time wasted. And so I would say on a daily basis, I'm looking ahead and I'm trying to garner some information. There was a few times it was a museum like with Fausto Coppi. I take the route and I use Chat GPT and I try and find all these things along the route, and and then I will, and then I think, I have to think about it. If it's at the beginning of the race, that's a good time because usually not much is going on. But I can't wait too long because if they catch me, I'm screwed for the rest of the day. Or if they get close to me, it's
uh,
very hard to get in front of the racers. If they get near you, oftentimes like they're going as fast as you can go on these roads. So you don't get any time to then get out. But I would say 90% of the time I'm making it up right there. And
really?
that I find stressful, but I enjoy that, but it's very stressful because if I plan something, it's very hard to execute on a plan because the race itself is so dynamic and my role is subordinate to the action of the race, basically.
That's gonna make watching so much more fun now. Because we're gonna be like, all right, he's running on the razor's edge. What's gonna happen?
Yeah,
It's gonna be a
I mean,
blast.
it's totally unique in sports. And when I get exhausted or have like a shitty day, or I had this great story and God damn it, the race got exciting. I hate that when the race gets exciting and I can't tell my story. But you get
Oh,
that frustration, right? If you do all this work and then nothing comes of it. So, skiing, I do way more work to then be on the air, but it's much more fixed, right?
yeah,
You kind of what your time allotments are going to be.
yeah. Aside from yours truly, who's your favorite analyst for any sport to work with? And if you can't make that, if
Uh,
you're not, if you can't do it, if you're like, nah, I can't throw anyone on the bus. But if you have a great story from an analyst that you're like, this person, this guy or gal had something, whatever.
Well, it's interesting because I only do play-by-play in alpine skiing, but mostly I'm analyst. So most of the time I am so working with you was really a highlight. And I'm not just saying it because we're on the air, but I've repeated it over and over. It's just I'm a super curious person, and I was able to learn, honestly, I was not at all impressed with my ability to deliver as a play-by-play person in that. I don't look back at that as a huge success for me, but it satisfied a lot of my curiosity, which is as important. And I learned so much about, to your point, I have not forgotten about, why wasn't Eric Heiden so successful on what was a Sheffield rink, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Outdoor environment.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you're like, the big guys, again, you get this wind differential from one direction to the other.
yeah,
It helps to be heavier, but they
yeah,
can't handle the G's in the turn or whatever.
yeah,
And I remember
yeah.
all that. And I remember you telling me, because if I had to do it again, I might be a hockey player. I picked up hockey at 55, and I love it so much. And I'm
I didn't think you were
so
a day
below
older than
average.
45. Look at you.
Yeah.
Man, you're
Yeah.
clinging like deer to you clinging to your youth. Love it.
I'm missing noon hockey. But before we
Oh,
go, you're going to share with me some tips to work on my acceleration and my speed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I think about that too. When you said, when you look at when they're on the ice, it's never a straight line. When they come off the power leg into the glide leg, it's
yep,
a little S turn, right? It comes underneath for
yep,
the glide, then it moves away for the power. Like
yep.
I hung on all of that stuff. So like I'm a super nerd. And so for me, and you were so helpful, particularly when I didn't know that they could at the last minute switch the pairs. Maybe you can explain it to me again or to your listeners, but I was only ready if these people were paired up against the people they were supposed to be paired up when I did my research. And then someone
Yeah.
didn't compete, and then all the pairs were off. And
Tick,
then
tick,
that
tick,
was
tick, tick.
like, I was
Yeah,
like, I got nothing now. I'm screwed.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's it's not great when that happens. It's not often, but sometimes they throw a wrench in the plans there, and somebody drops out, and they just
Yeah.
shuffle everybody up, and then your sheets are
Yeah.
all messed up. Well, you know what? I appreciate that curiosity. That's kind of you to say as well. I will say I was impressed. I don't know if you've I I I, I assume you haven't done any play-by-play of hockey, but like that, I think is the hardest broadcasting job is hockey play-by-play because you got to just like you just can never stop. And I
Yeah.
am obviously never been a play-by-play of any site of any sort. So the fact that you're able to like switch hats every once in a while is pretty darn impressive, I would say. Um, I think at least as far as covering these sports, when you are looking for someone who is going to be great at what they're doing, I would say my favorite people to work with have been the ones who have asked me questions on air, especially that you've never heard before. And that's, of course, almost impossible because you get like 99% people ask the same questions. And I can't remember exactly which ones, but I remember you asked me a couple questions and thinking, like, man, that's a good question. Like, I gotta really make up something here. I'm gonna sound like an gotta really make up an answer here. It's gonna sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. So it was a lot of fun. I hope we get a chance to do another show at some point.
I would love to. And that's what was going on there, I'm sure. It's like, I better come up with some good questions to kill some time because I got nothing on these athletes. I says, let them make it,
Also,
one where he's got to do 101.
well, also that was super hard because we're doing World University games, and the vast majority of those speed skaters are not world known. They're like college students, and so there's nothing about them online. So you're trying to find out anything to storytell or find out. So there, whenever if anyone's ever watching us doing an event with skaters who are not on an international circuit, um, here's the inside baseball. We're scrambling to like come up with something. So if I start telling stories about the old days, I don't know anything about the pair that's on the ice. So there's my shibboleth, my my secret for anyone watching.
But is that not one of your favorite things about, the World University Games are a little bit of a microcosm of the Olympics, is that these people don't get covered that often. And so they have a story that hasn't been told, and very often they're willing to spend the time with you to tell the story. And that's what makes I'm not honestly, I don't think I'd be that interested in doing the ball and stick sports in our country because it's just the game. It's just the X's and
Yeah,
O's. And while I
yeah,
appreciate the art of the guy, the Doc Emmerichs who are so good at hockey, there's not a s we know the players for the most part, right?
yeah,
There's
yeah,
no room to storytell. Whereas when we were at the university games and I got to go down on the ice with you, and you were like flypaper, everyone came over to talk to Joey Cheek. It was super cool. But do you remember the kid that was at, I don't know if he was at he was at school in Utah, Westminster,
yep,
somewhere along the line there,
yep,
but he said he
yep,
couldn't go to school this particular quarter because they had classes on a Tuesday. And
yeah,
40 years ago, Eric Hayden had built this program that I don't know how many days on and off,
yes,
but Tuesday was an on day. And so he
that's right,
wasn't going to deviate from this 40-year-old program because the
that's
on
right.
day he wasn't going to even shift it a day in the week. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So you could go
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
school.
yeah.
That was a no-go. That was
The
like, wow, that told me everything I needed to know about Haydn and all sorts of things.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, again, it goes without saying he revolutionized everything, but you're exactly right. There are these like pebbles in the water, and these waves ripple out, and for decades things continue on, and you don't even know the origins of them anymore, and yet they're still affecting your life and still affecting. Now, there is some physiological like reason for it too, I think. And at least in speed skating, we always race on Saturdays and Sundays. So if you do a really hard day, the best time is going to be a couple days after you finish your racing, but before you have a next set of races. So there is some like physiological truth to it, but it was sort of like uncovered in those early Haydn days. I mean, like the vast majority of the stuff we are doing was stuff that he did, and we've gotten better at it and smarter at it, and we do more of some and less of others, and we've added a few things. But like, it wouldn't look that different. It wouldn't actually. It's easier now physically because he was such a monster and he just absorbed workload. Maybe Jordan Stolz, the new kid, the like absolute phenom who's just dominating the sport right now. Maybe he's the closest analog we've got to Hayden, but like, I don't exactly know how he trains, but it's probably the closest we've ever seen in my lifetime, at least, to seeing what life would have been like when Eric Hayden was around and skating and training. Um, but this is not just talk about sports. That's too serious. We're here to talk about a party. And so this
Right.
is
Yeah.
my ask, the end of all this. Uh, in February of 2026, it will be 20 years since a young, green, naive to the world Joey Cheek stepped on the world stage and had the day of his life and won the gold medal. And to celebrate that, we're going to be throwing a big party February 18th in Milan. I know you're going to be on the mountain. Is there any chance we can convince you to come off the mountain and join me for the 20th anniversary party?
For the first time in all the Olympics I've been to, the alpine events end on the 18th. And so I'm assuming if it's a Joey Cheek commemorative party after 20 years, it's going to bleed into the 19th. So
At
as
least,
long as
yeah.
as long as it gets late, I
Oh,
it's a 4-hour drive. We're coming
yeah.
down on the 18th because we got hockey games to watch, but now we've got a party to attend. My 10-year-old is going to love partying with you, and I know my
Bring it.
wife will. Yeah,
Bring them
and
both. Bring
so
them.
we need to tweak some travel plans. But yeah,